All right, so what we ended up doing today, it's over here. But what we ended up doing today is we talked about different types of characters. So just like last time we did in class, we had conflict. We took conflict notes, and then we did a mentor text that dealt with the different types of conflicts that we could see. Today, what we did is we took character notes. And so on a separate sheet of paper, you can do this at home. You can just write it on a separate sheet. And then when you get back to school, we can tape it onto page 20 for you. So there's different types of characters. I'm going to show this to you and I'm going to read it to you as well. But like, so we have the first two here. These are the first two that you probably would already know. And I kind of talked about them last time. So you have protagonist and antagonist. The protagonist is usually the main character, which is like the good guy, and antagonist is the person or thing against the protagonist, which is the bad guy. So again, anything that I have written down, you are also going to want to write down. Just because you don't have the sheet of paper, you're probably also going to want to make sure that you say, hey, protagonist is this and a good guy. Antagonist is this and a bad guy. Okay? So make sure you're writing those things down because, again, when you get back to school, you can tape it in on page 20 in your notebook. That way you have the notes. Okay, so those are two different types of characters that you will see in a story or a book. A lot of times I think about like Marvel movies or that kind of thing because you have a very like obvious protagonist and then an obvious antagonist. Okay. The next two, there's a lot of information here, and so you guys can pause if you need to. But I'm going to kind of talk through what the difference is between these two things. So we have round character versus a flat character, and these two things are also opposite, just like how protagonist versus antagonist, those are opposite. So a round character is a character that you know a lot about versus a flat character you don't know very much about. Okay, and then a round character could be a protagonist or an antagonist, or a flat character could be anyone. This next one, though, is interesting. So it says round character is a story. The story's not the same without that person. Okay, where a flat character, the story would go on. So, for an example, the one I use in class today is Moana. So, if you've seen the movie Moana, Moana is obviously the round character. You know a lot about her. She's the protagonist. And the story would not be the same if she was not in it. Because why on earth? I mean, it's Moana. So, if Moana was not in Moana, it wouldn't like that would completely change the story because the story would never even be there in the first place. Okay, but if we think about the flat characters in Moana, you can think about that pig and the chicken. Hey, the chicken. Yes, they're funny. They add that like comic relief. They do funny things, that kind of thing. But if they were not actually in the story really wouldn't change. They just add some other things into it. So the story would continually or would go on. The last one on here is that a round character you have emotional connection to, whereas a flat character you don't really have a connection. Um, so again, going back to Moana, you have a connection with that character. You have an emotional connection with her. You kind of feel how she feels. You see how she's feeling, what she's doing, that kind of thing. Whereas the chicken and the pig, you don't really have a connection with. Yeah, you think they're funny, but it's not really that connection that you can relate to, because you can relate to the emotions that Moana was going through. Okay. All right, and then the last two on here, we have dynamic and static character. So again, all you're going to do is you're just going to make sure to put those labels down. You're going to put down underneath what each of them are. So again, this is the same thing, dynamic versus static. They're opposites of each other. So a dynamic character changes on the inside. So something within them changes. So maybe they change their feeling about something or their attitude about something. They change within. Okay. And then they're usually the main protagonist. Whereas a static character doesn't change. It could be a protagonist or an antagonist. But what's happening with that is that the fact that they don't ever change means that they're reliable. It's predictable. They're always going to do blank. So that's kind of why that's on there, reliable, is that they are reliable. They're predictable. No matter what, Superman's going to do this. No matter what, I'm trying to think of like the Joker for Batman. It was always going to do this. They're always however they present themselves. Okay. So this right here, I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of see, but this is what you'll need to make sure that you have on your notes. So if you need to pause here and just kind of get all the information on there again, that is fine. But again, you're going to want to make sure you have each individual thing noted on here so you know the difference between all the different types of characters that you will see in a book or a show or a movie, whatever it is that you're reading or looking at. So those are the different types of characters that you will see. All right, so then today in class, we did a mentor text. And so when you get back to class, you're going to want to get this mentor text from me. Looks like this. And same thing that we did with conflict. I read it, which I will read it to you, and then I took a little bit of annotation. But again, the annotation is really more so for annotating those characters and what we see in there. So I'm going to do a little bit of annotation with you. Just that I want you to watch. You guys can do this when you guys get back to class, and we'll go from there. Okay, so make sure you get this piece of paper from me when you get back. All right, so the first one here, and again, if you like this book, like you think it sounds interesting, the title is here, and the author is here, so you can add that to your maybe list, or you can add it to your bookmark, whatever works best for you. All right, so here we go. Most kids clear out of the way when I walk down the hall. They're like campers in the forest who spot a grizzly and scramble up a tree to hide, or in this case, climb into a locker. Okay, so right here, like they're scared of this guy. So scared of him. I'm going to ask this question to myself because a lot of times when you see that or hear that, I'm thinking bully. Like, is it? I don't know. I'm putting a question mark next to it because I'm not for sure. I've been called the Mastodon of Montgomery Middle School, the Springfield skyscraper, the moving mountain, the terrible tower, or you get the point. Sorry, you get the point or the idea. So what we know about this person, knowing by what they're saying here, skyscraper, tower, mountain, we know that this guy is tall. So he's tall, he's big. So again, that kind of like goes back to maybe he is a bully. I don't know, or maybe that's just why they're scared of him. I'm not for sure. Something else I want to point out here is there's something that's called an alliteration. Alliteration is when you see the same sound at the beginning of words as they kind of go in a row here. So we have Mastodon of Montgomery Middle School. That's an alliteration. Springfield skyscraper. That's another alliteration. Moving mountain. Another alliteration. And terrible tower. It's also another alliteration. So it's something that we see when we're reading as figurative language. All right. These names bothered me in 6th grade when I was excited to start middle school and make friends. But now in 8th grade, my size has become a profit center and business is booming. Okay, so the fact that it's profit center and business is booming, I'm thinking he's making money based off of what he's saying there. Take these two kids sitting down in the back corner of the library, my office, fidgeting like I'm going to eat them or something. One has practically chewed off his fingernails and the other one's leg won't stop bouncing. So these kids are nervous. I hear them whispering. What? I say. Is it true, the kids ask, that you carried 42 chairs to the auditorium by yourself? I stare. Yes. Actually, it was only 8 chairs, but these are the kinds of rumors that are good for business. Incredible. They start whispering to each other again. We're wondering if you could procure your walking services, Mr. Marcus. All right, so this is the guy's name. Just going to draw an arrow up here. He's the one up here who we're talking about. So I just drew it all the way up here because they're scared of him, bully, that kind of thing. Okay. Let's see. So Mr. Marcus, don't call me that. At the start of the school year, a bunch of 6th graders confused me for a teacher. While they were trying to find the auditorium, I told them they'd better figure out where they needed to go or I was going to collect a tax from them for getting in the way. They ran. Okay, so they think that this kid, this 8th grader, is a teacher. Okay? All right, so then moving on to the other side, it says, soon a rumor started spreading that I was really an undercover assistant principal, hired to keep kids in line. So now we've gone from teacher to assistant principal. Okay? It's kind of really ridiculous, but things at Montgomery often are. The rumors about me have gone from fantastical Godzilla with a crew cut to realistic assistant principal. It's really annoying, but like I said, I found a way to make it work for me. These two kids are here for me, or for my walking service, the crown jewel of my business. $5 a week to walk each of you to school, I say, and $5 to get you home. Your total invoice is $10 per week. Each of us? The kid seems surprised. I could walk you halfway for half the price. They look at each other for a moment. That's my blue plate special, I say. No, we'll take the whole service, but thank you. Where do you live? I live on Maple and Vine, one kid says. The other kid chimes in with, I'm on Vine and North Cherry Hill Drive. I already walked 4 other kids who live in the Cherry Hill neighborhood, so 2 more isn't a big deal. I can't charge them more than $10 or parents will start to wonder. The way I see it, it's a win-win for everyone. I'm making some money, and these kids are getting protection from bullying on their walks to and from school. I'm doing a service. People pay for bodyguards all the time. That's what I am to these kids, a big, bad bodyguard. So now he's this bodyguard. But what's interesting to me on this, too, like, he thinks that he's protecting, so protection from the bully. So is he a bully? I don't know, because it doesn't come off that way, because now they're asking him for protection against other bullies. So he's being a protector. He's being that bodyguard. So I'm not 100% sure if my bully with the question mark earlier really is what needs to happen there. Okay. All right. So we don't know a whole lot in this. I'm going to go up to the top, and you can actually, well, I'm trying to think if I want you to write this down or not. You can write this on your piece of paper. That way you have it. The annotations you don't have to, but this part I do want you to write. Okay. So I'm going to have you write this. You can write it on the same notes that you took this on, the same piece of paper. That is fine. You can do the same thing. Okay. All right. So somewhere on that piece of paper, I want you to write this. We're going to write the two different characters that we see. So we have Marcus. He's one of the characters. And then the other characters that are really talked about are these two sixth graders. So you can just write that somewhere. And we're just going to list and kind of talk about what we know about those characters based on our character notes that we took earlier. So if we're looking at this, like the two sixth graders, they didn't have names. We don't know who they are. Yeah, there were other kids mentioned. They said that he walked 4 other kids home, which is great. But the two sixth graders, the ones who are actually having conversations with Marcus. So these characters, if we're looking at them, like we don't know much about these characters. They're not a main character. They're not a protagonist, or they're not an antagonist either. But we don't know much about them. They're not changing. But again, we don't know the whole story. This is only page 1 through 3 of this whole book. So I think the only thing we really know about it, and looking at this, I can see too, is I think that these kids are only going to be flat characters. So that's the type of character that they are. So underneath this, I'm just going to put flat. And I'm going to stick with just that one for now. Okay? Then we move over to Marcus. So again, I want to make sure that you're writing just this section that I'm doing up here. Okay? So Marcus, we actually know some things about him. We wrote from the very first paragraph we looked at. We said that people were scared of him, that he may have been some sort of bully. He's making money. He's really tall. He's seen as a teacher sometimes. He's seen as a assistant principal. He's seen as a bodyguard. So there's things that we're learning about him. And I mean, the book itself, if we're looking at this title, is Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish. So in this particular thing, he is going to be the protagonist, and I'm going to abbreviate on that. But he's the protagonist. He's the main character. I mean, it's obviously about him because his name is in the title. Which brings me down to the next thing. Is going back to my Moana thing I did before, the fact that his name is in the title, if we were to take him out of the book, the story would not be the same without him. Okay? And we know a lot about him. We know quite a bit about him just from these couple of pages that we've read. So he's definitely also a round character. Now, the last one, and he's not, I don't know that he's static or dynamic. We don't know that yet because we're only looking at the 3 pages. The 2 pages, I guess, that looks like on here, that we're looking at, and it's a whole book. So I don't know exactly which one he is yet because I don't have the whole story. So he could, in fact, be dynamic. And that's probably what I'm thinking is probably going to happen if I were to continue to read the book, but I'm not for sure. So I'm not going to put one of these down, but he would be one of these other characters as well. Okay? So on that same sheet that you did, make sure this part is also on there. And then what you'll need to do for me is you're going to take a picture of the notes that you took. So it'll be these notes plus the little notes that you took down below. So if your note sheet looks like this, you have all that information, you're good to go. You're going to take a picture of it and send it to me in an email. And then when you get back to school, you're going to make sure to bring it to me and we can put it on page 20. And I will also give you a copy of the mentor text. So you can also put that on page 20. Okay. Outside of that, we did read for about 30 minutes today. So I would like for you to go ahead and read as well. Make sure you do that. Otherwise, I'm looking for that email from you. And then I will see you when you get back. All right. Thanks.